Hi, folks. This is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. I want to share another experience that's been part of my life through fishing that I would have never had if I wasn't going fishing and doing my TV show, Streamside. Anyway, I'd been invited down to the Everglades to go to a spot way deep in the Everglades that was run by the chief of the Seminoles, Chief James Billy. And they had sort of like a little, I guess you would call it, a tourist center in the middle of this whole vast area. Just to get there was amazing. And they had helicopters to bring people in and so forth. So anyway, we are there. And I was there to try to do a fishing show. I remember that I didn't have all that great of luck catching much fish during this trip. But what really stands out to me was the alligators. And they told me these great big huge alligators lived back in the swamps. And we went back to look for one that one of the Seminoles that was sort of our guide said, "We've seen it. It's gigantic. It's huge." And so back we go. I have my friend Jay, who was my cameraman at the time, and just a great accomplice in some of the adventures that we had. So he's carrying the camera gear, and we're walking, and we get way back in. And all of a sudden, I start hearing this incredible growling sound, a deep, deep growl. Well, what was that growl? It was this monster alligator expressing himself. And, you know, you see pictures of alligators and, you know, it's one thing to have one 3 or 4 feet long. This thing, I'm not going to start telling you because you'll think I'm exaggerating, but it was huge. It was gigantic. It had lived probably for a long, long time, and we had invaded its space. Well, jumping ahead, some of the tourists that came to this place out in the middle of the Everglades, and I'm telling you, no towns, no anything around. You're like you picture maybe South America or something. And anyway, Chief James Billy, he was a stocky, strong Seminole that was ahead of all the Seminoles in this area, and he put on a show wrestling alligators. Well, he wasn't wrestling this gigantic growling monster I told you about, but these big alligators, and he would get in the water with them, and there'd be a crowd of spectators around, and we were filming it. And he started wrestling this gator, and all of a sudden, the gator spun, and it rolled him underwater. And I don't know much about any of this, but I knew enough to know that if that gator was able to roll him, there wasn't a good story that was about to take place. And so he came back up, and the crowd is laughing and cheering. And I said to Jay, "This isn't good. Something bad has happened." He came back up, he bowed to the crowd, and he started walking away. Well, what had happened is that gator had just about bitten his hand off at the wrist. And he somehow, I guess it's still somewhat attached, but he got to a local hospital. And there is so much bacteria in the mouths of gators. I mean, some of the worst in the world that exists here, that there was no way that the doctors could try to reattach that part of him that had been bitten because the bacteria is just so horrendous. We got all that on film. As a matter of fact, I believe that in David Letterman got some of our film to show about this horrible thing that happened. Chief James Billy did survive, but this was an incredible thing to witness. It gives me the shivers just to imagine what that must have been like when that gator rolled him. But again, this is an experience that I had because I was fishing. I don't remember catching many fish down there. I don't think I did, but I'll never forget that part of the Everglades, that part of Florida that we can't imagine unless we go in there. There were wild hogs in there, and you know they're formidable as well. And they were out there in the swamp that we were trenching through. Anyway, this is another memory that I wanted to share with you. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you. I'm not exaggerating the sound of that gator's growl. I'm not exaggerating the terror that took place within a second with Chief James Belly as that gator rolled him. And it's part of the world around us that if I hadn't had the opportunity to go fishing, I would have never been able to experience. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.